Isle Royale is roughly a 206 square mile piece of Michigan-owned land located in the waters of Lake Superior, and there's currently a big debate on whether or not wolves should be reintroduced to this area or not. The island has been territory to wildlife for over hundreds of years, and when an ice bridge from Canada was formed in the early 20th century, moose also became part of this territory and the ecosystem. Isle Royale is also the only location on the planet where wolves and moose interact in the absence of other important predators and prey, such as coyotes, deer, and bear. And today, there is only one wolf pack left on the island. Moose lived on Isle Royale for about 5 decades in the absence of wolves. Without having predators, moose increased to a very high level of about 3,000 or more by the late 1920s. During this population increase, moose browsing dramatically impacted Isle Royale's forest vegetation. The moose population crashed in 1934 due to an acute lack of food, increased again, and then died back once more in the 1940s. This then brought up the topic of introducing the wolves. 4 wolves were first introduced in 1962, although previous knowledge said that there may be a colonized group that came around 1958. Since their establishment on Isle Royale, wolves have been the primary source of moose mortality, and moose have compromised more than 90% of wolves' diet. In 1958, researchers began studying the population dynamics of wolves and moose on Isle Royale. Between 1958 and 1980, wolf predation had substantial impact on moose abundance and rates of browsing. The wolf population later crashed after humans inadvertently introduced canine parvovirus, or CBV, to the Isle Royale wolf population. With wolf population low, moose population became extremely high with about 5 per square kilometer. What this means is that with such a high number of moose and no predators, the ecosystem gets messed up and there's no longer enough food for all the moose. This resulted in the moose population decreasing 50%, about 1,100 to 500 from 2001 to 2011. And of those, most were middle-aged moose, which are rarely taken down by a small number of wolves. With the ecosystem in high danger, this raises the question, do we reintroduce the wolves back into the Isle Royale, or do we let nature play its role? This is where things get tricky. Do we play a part in intervention, or do we not? It's hard to say what is natural, because humans introduced the wolves to Isle Royale. But for Isle Royale, wolves are the icons of wilderness culture. Therefore, allowing wolves to remain extinct on Isle Royale would significantly wound Isle Royale's wilderness character and important points of connection between people and Isle Royale. Non-intervention would override the wilderness values of Isle Royale, while intervention would enhance and honor wilderness values of Isle Royale. A great deal of conservation science affirms that unregulated overabundance is a widespread and severe threat to ecosystem health, and that top predators like wolves are vital components of ecosystem health for limiting unregulated abundance. Wolves and moose have been a part of Isle Royale's history for only a short time. For that reason, the argument would go losing wolves from Isle Royale leaves the place no less healthy than it had been before. In contradiction, the General Management Plan for Isle Royale National Park, which indicates that preserving and protecting the park's wilderness character, natural resources, and ecological practice is one of the park's purposes, and that to preserve ecological integrity of Isle Royale is one of the park's top priorities. With that, we are left with the question, should wolves be introduced, or should we let nature take its course? Being a resident of Michigan, I feel connected to this issue. I do not think that extinction of wolves on the island should be valued over letting nature take its course. After all, it is us humans who are taking its course on nature's life.